This episode of the Party Loaded podcast is proudly sponsored by Audible.com. Check out their awesome catalogue of audiobooks with over 180,000 titles to choose from. And be sure to grab a free audiobook on us and support the show by visiting audibletrial.com/endgame.
Let's party.
Hello everybody, welcome back, welcome one and all to the Party Loaded podcast for Wednesday evening, the 7th of November. This, of course, is your weekly hit of everything great in the world of video games. I am one of your hosts, Luke Retallick, partying up tonight with the trio. We've got Christian, we've got Matt. Welcome, guys. Welcome. Let's do it, partners.
Howdy, partners.
Howdy,
Yeah,
partners.
I should have said that instead.
I got to admit, it's actually been taking a supreme amount of willpower this last week to not just talk like a cattle rustling varmint the entire time. It's been hilarious. It's like, you know, when you go overseas sometimes to some foreign countries and within a week or so you just assimilate with the language and start picking up a bit of the twang. Like doing that within the space of a video game is a new sensation.
I found it working its way into my messages, like just some of the words I choose to text. It's coming across a little cowboy, I think.
Oh, really? You're just walking down the street going, partner.
Between Fallout 76 and Red Dead this past week, I definitely am trying very hard not to sound cliche American.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, obviously, Americans have had a big week this week with all of the election stuff going on, and I feel like I've been doing my civic duty by avoiding all of that and staying indoors and playing video games. So, it's been good. All right. Well, we are just the three of us tonight, but we've got tons of stuff to talk about. It's actually been quite a big week, all things considered. Post-PAX blues haven't really set in for me personally, given that we've had so many distractions. I don't know how you feel, Matt. There's been tons going on.
No, I'm good. Yep. I'm good.
You're good. Nice. All right. And Christian's been diligently sort of playing in the background, getting some work done on some game stuff. So
solid hours.
Some solid hours, putting in the work. So we probably kicked off early in the week with Jam and Matt and I actually jumping back in. First time for Jam and Matt. I'd already sort of been in and chatted about it briefly last week, checking out some more of the Fallout 76 beta. So now I kind of spoke about it in my opening impressions last episode, but Matt, I'm real keen to hear what your thoughts were sort of jumping in for the first time.
So put it this way, I wasn't intending on playing the Fallout 76 beta, but then in the past week, I've probably put more time into Fallout 76 than I have Red Dead. So.
Oh, wow. Given that it's in beta with limited windows, that's actually quite remarkable. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when it's like, okay, well, I guess I'm getting up at 2 a.m. to play.
Holy shit.
No, I've been thoroughly enjoying it. It's not without its flaws, especially in terms of like the user interface. There's a lot of clunky stuff that's just like little annoyances with the user interface. I know you experienced it because we were talking about it very briefly while we were playing.
Yeah.
But like you've got the character, these are all your friends, and you click on a friend, and then you try to navigate to like the midpoint of the menu, but you have to go like directly left and then down. You can't like go diagonally.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't actually keep that person selected. It's just based on where the mouse is highlighting. It's such a little thing, but it is the most annoying thing in the world. But other than that, like I was really surprised at how good the lag is. Like it's not laggy at all. The game is super snappy. I'm playing a melee character, which weirdly enough, melee is less reliable than ranged when it comes to lag. I've had a couple of occasions where a lag spike has basically seen me swinging at the same enemy 3 times before finally one of the swings actually registers as a hit.
Yeah.
And there's a whole other rant I could go into about their PvP system and the fact I'm not a huge fan of it right now.
Okay.
I've definitely heard mixed things about it.
Yeah, like the wanted status stuff. When I first started playing, I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like, you go and kill somebody, you get a wanted status. But that's not actually how it works, and there's already people that have figured out ways around it and have figured out ways to grief other players with interesting use of the game mechanics.
Okay.
So Like I was playing with my partner, and we were hanging out in my little hut that I built, my hobo shack, and she had a wanted status. So we figured out later on why she got it, because she hadn't attacked any other players. But if a player goes and stores an item in a public storage storage place, like if they go and shove it into just a random locker somewhere, if you go over and then loot that item, it counts as theft and it gives you a wanted status.
Oh,
but
really?
It doesn't show that item as being player owned. So they can go and shove it into something that has a whole bunch of other items and just grief the hell out of other players. And the thing is so they've got these overseer chests that everybody has to access at some stage, and it comes with a whole bunch of free stuff.
Yeah.
Guess what's a publicly accessible storage box? So players have been putting things in those and then having other players get wanted status because they technically stole an item, and it can be like a piece of junk, but it will still be theft.
Right.
And then they get the wanted status, and there's no repercussions for killing that person. There's only benefits for killing that person.
That is dirty as hell. I kind of love it.
No, that's dumb. And it sounds like it's easier to fix. You just need like a pop-up warning saying, "Are you sure you want to take this item owned by blah 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 player?"
Yeah,
it's been in every single Fallout and Skyrim game that an item that you're going to steal is highlighted in red. It's red
That's
text.
true. Yeah, red text.
But it doesn't actually show in the game right now, as far as I'm aware. Then there's a whole other thing. Like we were playing, and so right now to contextualize for everybody, like if somebody else shoots you, they do reduced damage to you until you shoot back.
Yeah, it's just chip damage.
Which it's chip damage. So the whole idea basically being is that PvP is consent. Yeah, so it kind of goes halfway. So for the people that are PvE, it would be like, oh no, this is a great thing. It basically means that somebody can come along and shoot me and I can just ignore them. Until you take into consideration, well, what if they come along and start shooting you for reduced damage while you're already taking a bunch of damage from mobs? And that was an experience I had where another player came along and did a whole bunch of chip damage to me, and they didn't get wanted or anything like that, even though they started the fight. And I was very, very lucky to come out of that unscathed because I was in the middle of a fight with like 5 super mutants.
Yeah.
The wanted status doesn't seem to kick in if you defend yourself when somebody else attacks you. So Melissa and I, my partner, we were just hanging out, and then these 2 other players come along and attacked us, and they were doing like only small little hits. And this was the first time we ever gotten into a PvP situation, so we retaliated and started shooting back, and they killed us because they were much higher level. So this was before we knew about the chip damage thing. And they killed us, but they didn't actually get a wanted status for killing us. And I'm guessing that's because we defended ourselves.
Okay.
So it's really strange right now. As you can go and accidentally steal an item and get wanted, but if other players go around and actually kill you, if you defend yourself, they don't get wanted. So I don't know how it works. It's really weird.
Yeah.
I was saying to this to other people, and I've seen the general consensus is online is basically, why not just have 2 different types of servers? If there's a cap of 25 players on a server, just have a PvE server and a PvP server.
Yeah.
And if you're on the PvP server, there's no chip damage, just it's 100% damage. If you're on a PvE server, you can't do damage to other players, and that would satisfy everyone. So
it's interesting looking at other games that have solved this in other ways. Like The Division's the one that springs to mind, where their solution was actually having the dedicated PvP zone on the same map, which was like, the extreme high danger area, the dark zone. And, Fallout, given the fact that you have a map where there are like much more dangerous areas than other areas, that could make sense as well. But I don't know. I appreciate what they're going for. And I think, fortunately, given that it's a game as a service, they probably can make adjustments in future if feedback indicates that it's not working for people. But I don't know. It's an interesting one.
I see that changing a lot. I think that people overall won't be too happy with that system.
It doesn't satisfy anybody. Like, I wouldn't consider myself with a game like Fallout 76. I'm not too super interested in running around and getting into a whole bunch of PvP. I'm much more interested in going around and doing that PvE content because it's vastly more interesting.
Yeah.
But right now, if there's other players around, I could be 1 second working with them, and then the next they could be putting bullets into me to have the NPCs around me killing me.
Yeah.
And then I drop my stuff when I'm killed by NPCs. Can they loot that? Because I'm pretty sure if they killed me, that I wouldn't drop stuff for them to loot. I'm pretty sure that's what's happened. So Like it's a whole bunch of big question marks right now. And then if I was a PvP player, I'd be pissed because it's like, well, I'm shooting these people and trying to get them to fight me back, but they won't.
Yeah.
So, like, nobody wins.
It's like you're throwing a dodgeball at someone's head and just going, come on, play. Come on, play. Come on, play.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, at least the death penalty in this game, you know, in any situation is actually not that severe. You pretty much lose the junk that you're carrying and that's it. Like, if you picked up any non-junk items, you actually keep those. So, which is kind of interesting. But,
yeah, I think we've seen quite a few games recently that have made like more severe death penalties, like battle royale style games, and I think that is actually quite fun when it does matter. I think that maybe it should matter more in Fallout 76.
Yeah,
maybe. My big concern with Fallout 76 is like it'd be very easy. You spend a lot of time if you dropped weapons when you died. You spend a lot of time getting materials to upgrade those and that sort of thing. Like that would suck. Like you drop your kick-ass weapon, especially since you have very limited carrying capacity. But if you dropped a copy of your weapon for another player, maybe that would be okay. But then you get into duping issues with players just duplicating items. Like I don't know how you do that. Like unless just do the PvP dedicated server, and when you die, you drop everything.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
That would be okay, and that kind of encourages you to use your storage space and collect weapons. So,
Or maybe just handle it like World of Warcraft does, and you flag yourself for PvP, and then if you want to engage in that, then you can. If you don't want to, then you don't. So, yeah, that's another interesting.
For sure.
Oh, well, we actually did get to experience one of the sort of in-game mission areas, which was kind of cool. So it was like what was the place that we ended up in, man? It was like a chemical plant or something. I couldn't quite work it out.
So we went into a couple of different areas. So we went into one of the ones that everybody will basically experience, which is basically this farming building where you go in there and you can there's a whole bunch of ghouls fighting robots. You can go around and kill all of them. And then if there's an event active, so the event in that area is basically you have to kill these 3 robots, and then it leads you into that building to actually go and shut down or change the robots' programming so they aren't attacking humans and trying to mulch them into fertilizer. It's very Fallout. It's excellent. But then the other one we were doing, we ended out just kind of exploring in the last 30 minutes, last hour of when we were playing together. We found this like completely messed up city and found this one building that Luke and I were basically like, hey, let's go to the top of this thing and see what's up there. And sure enough, there's a door that leads all the way back down to the building on the inside. And we spent the last bit of our beta play together going through that building, trying to figure out the little quest that it gave us just by entering to get access via administration rights into the lower floors. And we got to the point where we had basically gotten into the lower floor area, but we needed an access key or something like that, and we could not work out where the damn thing was.
Yeah, we were sort of printing access passes and like running from back and forth from various different rooms where like the control was in one room and then the printer was in another room, sort of thing. And yeah, it was very involved. It was a lot more detailed than I expected, to be honest, which was a pleasant surprise. So
yeah, it was a neat little side quest. When I was playing later on, there was some other event areas that I went into. So there was one that I did that was pretty neat, where you basically find this facility that basically is producing food, like canned food. And so you can go in there when the event's active and power up the facility and basically make a whole bunch of canned food for survivors in the area. You get rewards out of it. It doesn't actually give you a whole bunch of canned food, but the whole point is going around and collecting these items to chuck into the machine, powering the machine up, and then when you power it up, it's making a whole bunch of noise, which ends up pulling in every single enemy in the area.
Oh, of course.
And you're basically defending all these different machines that are trying to process all the stuff. And it's very, very weird because, you have all these ghouls that come in and you expect them to run straight at you, but no, they're more interested in punching the machines to death, so...
Yeah. Reminds me of the strategies they use in The Walking Dead to sort of draw all the walkers in, like just, massive amounts of sound. Yeah. Yeah, funny. Like
the robots also ignore you and go for the machines. Like everything ignores you and goes for the machines. I don't know. It's weird, but it was a fun little event that I got into on a couple of occasions. So. Yeah.
Well, there's 2 game mechanics that I just wanted to briefly sort of touch on because I thought this was quite interesting. So I tried out VATS, which is the I forget what the acronym stands for. I think it's Vault Assist Targeting System or something like that.
Like that, yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically the auto targeting system that exists in all the other Fallout games, which typically I think it kind of puts you in bullet time and allows you to sort of predictively target different body areas and that kind of thing. Now, Fallout 76, obviously, because it's a multiplayer game, it can't sort of slow time for you. So the way that it works is a little different. You hit the Q key, and then basically the thing you're aiming at, it actually gives you a percentage chance to hit it. And I think that when you level it up later, it actually allows you to sort of target individual body parts by sort of toggling around. But at the base level, it just sort of, it changes your sort of manual targeting over to like a percentage chance to hit. And that instead of sort of using your own crosshairs. Now, I actually think that's quite interesting because it's something you can level up and increase your percentage at. But it does introduce a little bit of weirdness. Like there's a tiny bit of shooting around corners and that kind of thing if you sort of get it a bit janky. But if something is behind cover, like the percentage chance to hit it does go right down, and it does make sense to avoid it altogether when you've got enemies that are directly in front of you because it's always going to be more reliable to use your own sort of targeting to hit something as opposed to relying on the percentage. But as a way to translate that system into a multiplayer game, I think it's actually quite good. I don't know how much I'll use it, but it's interesting how they've done it. So
it's like a temporary aimbot.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. Yeah, but it's a temporary aimbot that actually forms a game mechanic that can be leveled up as you sort of advance in your perception skill and that kind of thing too. So that part fascinates me. So
this is a total aside, but it's totally relevant. Like I wish that another game company would actually work out to do bullet time the way the Matrix Online did bullet time, because they actually had bullet time in that game and it worked. And it was a massively multiplayer online game. But the reason that worked was because all the combat was turn-based, and so what it would do is it would slow down time for you. It would be totally noticeable. It wouldn't be slowed down as much as in the movies, but if it's slowed down, you get to make all your moves and everything like that. And then it would speed back up, but in a really unnoticeable way once you were out of combat. So like you could totally have the slowdown, and because PvP in that game would still be turn-based, it wouldn't really matter if a second ago you were sped up. Like you wouldn't be jumped by somebody and have a little time to react. So yeah, I thought that would actually really, really neat if somebody could work out a way to do that again.
Bizarre. Yeah, that's cool. I don't know. But the other thing I kind of want to talk about, which sort of ties into this neatly, is the actual advanced system with the special cards. Now, I still don't completely understand this system, but I think I really, really like it. Like a lot like it. It's really cool. So, Christian, the way it works is that you've got your sort of general stats, which are the same as most Fallout games. So, it forms the acronym SPECIAL. So, S is the strength, P is perception, et cetera, all the way down to luck. And you basically, whenever you level up in this game, and I don't know if there is a level cap, you can choose to advance one of those stats by 1 point. And at the same time, you either get one card or a packet of cards, which are kind of like specialist skills that you can put in those slots. And the cards themselves actually have a numerical value associated with them, which corresponds to how many points you have available in each of those different slots. So say, for example, I've got a strength of 3. I can put either a card in that slot that has a 3 value, or I can put 3 ones or a 1 and a 2. Or, if I don't actually have the cards, I can put no cards in it and I still get, a little bit of an advantage, with what that corresponds to in game sense. Like if you increase your strength, you can carry more items, for instance, but you just don't get any of those sort of special bonuses that the cards themselves provide. So there's this weird sort of, meta game going on with actually trying to collect these different perk cards, and you can actually level up the cards as well. Like if you get 2 of the same card, you can combine them to make a better version of that ability, which actually increases the number on it as well. And how you're spreading your different abilities and sort of stats across, which basically means that every single player is going to have a different sort of set of abilities, because what you open in these card packs is actually entirely random in game. And this isn't one of the areas that they have assigned a real money currency to. This is actually fully within the game. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was going to say that sounds just like microtransactions to me.
It sounds like that. It
not.
Sounds exactly like that, what they would monetize, but they haven't. So.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's your character progression. Like I could see them doing card packs, but they haven't. Like, it's not in the store. Like, everything in the store is cosmetic. So I'm like, that's really good.
Yeah,
like,
that
here's
is
a
good.
system that they could totally monetize, and they haven't, which is nice.
Yeah, I hope they don't. Like, I hope that they make it possible in game to get card packs from completing like missions or something like that. Like, actually make it hard. Almost like if they introduce something similar to like your standard raid, like having a card pack as a raid reward or something like that, that would be really cool. So good reason to, run repeated content like that. But yeah, man, I was actually quite enamored with it. I thought it was a really eloquent way to sort of keep the Fallout theme, intact and give it a lot of variety between the way that characters level up. And deciding on what you want to put your points into is actually really hard. So
also like the systems around it and the way it works. So like I was really worried about how charisma would work in Fallout 76, but I think charisma is actually the strongest stat in Fallout 76 because there's a whole bunch of stuff with charisma. Like later on in charisma, you can actually tame like any wild NPC basically and turn it against other players. Which sounds incredibly handy. But one of the coolest things in the game is that if you have a certain amount of charisma, you can actually share your cards with other players in your group.
Holy crap.
It's only for as long as you're in a group together. It's not permanent. You can't trade. But you can basically go and say, well, okay, I have 9 charisma, and that basically means you can share up to 3 points of a card value with other players in your group. It's like one for every 3 charisma you have, you can share 1 card value, basically. So a card up to 3 power you can share if you have 9 charisma.
Wow.
That is super, super powerful when you start factoring in, okay, if I have a character that has 9 charisma and has a really high strength, Strength has this card that gives you damage reduction based upon your strength value. And you can just go and share that with other players. Like, that's amazing. That is super cool.
Like a party buff kind of thing. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. This sort of thing is really fascinating. I during my second playthrough, I started to see some of the less polished areas of the game, like particularly with the gameplay, and graphics sort of, there was constant hitching, which was a little bit of a downer, and everything wasn't quite as smooth as my first run. But I do agree with your comments about, the server lag being, almost non-existent. It was very, very smooth. I did see a Pete Hines interview where he was saying that, because someone asked him whether there was going to be Australian servers for the game, and he said, well, no, because the way that it actually works is that there are no physical servers. Everything is done in the Amazon cloud. So, so depending on where the Amazon infrastructure is, that's actually where your connection's coming from. So
that would explain a lot.
Yep. So probably a good thing, all things considered. So yeah. But yeah, Fallout 76. Definitely going to be a thing, I think. Definitely going to be a thing. I've been thinking about it a lot this week.
Yeah. Well, next beta window is 2 a.m. tomorrow, so.
Yep. I'm in. Let's do it. Yep. Cool. Well, I did play one other thing this week, besides a whole bunch of Red Dead, which we've all been playing, which we're not going to talk about right now because that is, of course, the main crux of the show. So I got around to playing the Spider-Man DLC, the Heist, for Spider-Man on PS4. And Christian, you know how you went and you sold sort of Spider-Man when you finished the main story because you weren't that interested in the DLC stuff? Yeah, I'm going to say that you may have done a boo-boo because this is fucking awesome. It's real good. Yeah.
I'll moderate that by how much you overhype some things.
Okay, that's fair. That is entirely fair. I do get excited about stuff. But I will say that as far as the Black Cat goes, this is actually my favorite incarnation of Black Cat in any Spider-Man sort of media to date, I think. The way that she's done in the DLC is absolutely mwah. It's real good. So the DLC is a good, I'd say 3-4 hours worth of story content, which surprised me. I was actually expecting it to be a little shorter, but there was a decent amount in there. So it's a good chain of missions, and there are sort of additional activities that you can do as well, similar to the stuff that appears all over the map in Spider-Man, like, not as basic as, hunt down 20 pigeons or anything like that. But there is some more sort of challenge type activities and, different collectibles you can get, which is kind of cool. But the main stuff is the story missions, and there is a little bit of a side sort of mission content as well, which actually sort of ties into the story really, really neatly and fleshes out the Black Cat character sort of beyond sort of today, current day. Because you've got to remember, like, the timeline-wise, this is still Peter Parker as Spider-Man, like a fair bit into his his, run as Spider-Man. Like he's encountered Felicia Hardy before. They've had a previous relationship. There's baggage there that actually comes up when they interact again as characters, which is it's fascinating the way that it all plays out. It's real, real good. But this being the first part of a trilogy of DLC content, like usually my biggest concern with DLC for big narrative games like this is stuff that feels like it's tacked on as an afterthought and it's not really, given too much attention as opposed to, what often feels like just a way to wrangle more money out of the consumer. I really think they thought about this. Like, I think that they put a lot of thought into how this was going to go with the main game. I think it makes absolute sense as DLC because it does feel like an epilogue of sorts. Like, it's not part of the main sort of story of the core game, but it's robust enough that it is actually entirely worthwhile and not an afterthought at all. I think that they've put a lot of effort into this, and I was very pleasantly surprised with how good it was. So, plenty of action, plenty of really awesome character interaction moments. The story was great. And leaves a nice little cliffhanger as well at the end of the episode, sort of leading up to the second and the third ones. So I'm pretty convinced that all three of them are going to sort of revolve around Black Cat quite a bit. But there is another new villain that's been introduced from Spidey lore, and he's a fairly major player if you know your Spider-Man stuff. Not necessarily sort of Sinister Six kind of caliber, but someone who does feature quite prominently in a lot of the New York gang activity at least. So... but yeah, so that's my little rundown of the Heist. For anyone who's played Spider-Man and still has the game, I think you should pick it up. It's real good, basically. So yeah.
I've been itching for some more Spider-Man, so that just sold me.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So no additional platinum trophies for the DLC content though. Sadly, there's a few extra trophies, but not platinums. So anyway, this is one of those things. Yeah, but yeah, no, I was compelled enough to go in and actually 100% all of the content, whereas I could have just finished it on about 60 or so. But I got all the collectibles and did everything. So can recommend. But yeah, so that's Spidey, that's Fallout. Let's get into some news because it's actually been a decent week for stuff going on. So play the jingle.
Now it's time to hear some gaming news. Time for some gaming news.
All right, so diving in. Big thing, BlizzCon has happened. So this is the annual Blizzard Entertainment convention, of course, sort of celebrating the fandom for all of their major games. And this year, of course, including, not necessarily main stages for things like Destiny 2 and Call of Duty and the other sort of wider sort of Activision titles. But I think there was definitely a bit more going on with those things this year than before. I mean, Destiny 2 is free currently. That was announced. I don't know if that was announced at BlizzCon, but it was at the same time. So anyone who wants to play Destiny 2 on PC, not the Forsaken content, not the most recent stuff, but the base game, if you want to get that for free, you can up until I think it's the 18th. So still a good game. And like that's a game that for free is actually a pretty decent get. So yeah, you should do that basically. But yeah, then moving on to the main stuff. So do we want to talk about the big one first? Should we talk about the big one first?
Yes, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about the big one.
All right. So I'm going to throw this to one of you then. Who wants to pick up and chat about Diablo Immortal, the announcement and subsequent, let's call it Fallout.
Yeah.
Okay. So most people have probably heard the details of this, but I believe, was it like the last thing of their opening ceremony at BlizzCon? It was like their last announcement.
There's a tradition with BlizzCon where they tend to announce a bunch of stuff during the opening sort of keynote, and then the first panel or the first main stage after that is usually the biggest, like put aside for the biggest reveal of the show. So, a few years back that was Overwatch, of course. Like Overwatch was the final sort of thing announced during the keynote, and then it had center stage immediately following. And traditionally that's been, other big things too, like big World of Warcraft expansions, yada, yada. You get the idea. Yeah.
And so leading up to this year, people knew that it was going to be Diablo related, or that there was going to be a Diablo announcement at BlizzCon. Mm-hmm. And Blizzard had already sort of got out ahead a little bit and tried to warn people that it's not going to be Diablo 4. They kind of tried to dampen the fire a bit, but insufficiently. And when they announced Diablo Immortal, which is a mobile game being co-developed by a Blizzard team and Tencent from China, that did not go well with the audience or the people watching at home. And it's kicked off a bit of a firestorm of people being way too extreme and way too ridiculous in their negativity, and it's been just another case of gamer outrage online.
Yep.
And I mean, that's not to say that Blizzard handled everything perfectly, or that's not to say that I think Diablo Immortal is going to be a game that I'm interested in playing, but it doesn't justify, in my opinion, the massive wave of negativity that's been pointed at them.
Yeah, I was going to be much meaner about this, but just before we started recording, I watched this really excellent video by Jesse Cox where he basically talks about the experience he had at BlizzCon, and he basically says, people shouldn't be as pissed off as they are. Disappointed is fine, but he was also making some very, very good points about just how badly Blizzard messed up the presentation at the opening ceremony this year. So, he has a theory, and given the way he kind of states it, it sounds to me like he's gotten some inside information about what was supposed to happen. Because apparently Diablo 4 was supposed to be announced. He didn't mention this, but Diablo 4 was supposed to be announced, and then it was pulled because the development team for Diablo 4 didn't think it was ready, which is absolutely fair enough. But what Jesse was basically saying was basically if you watched the opening ceremony, after they get people out on stage and they're talking about things, and there's some World of Warcraft announcements and such, there was a bunch of stuff that had happened where lights were in people's faces, and so they couldn't actually see the presentation notes or anything like that in front of them, which was particularly bad. And it kind of led to some weird awkwardness because a whole bunch of people were holding up white sheets of paper that said some note to one of the developers on it, which was given to them by Blizzard, but nobody could actually read it because the light was in their eyes. And then they went over to the Hearthstone stage, and the person on the Hearthstone stage could not be heard by anybody on the stream or at any of the other stages because of an audio issue. So they were only heard by the Hearthstone room. So about 2 or 3 minutes into his completely audio-free presentation, they cut to the Overwatch room, and the impression that Jesse got was that the Overwatch announcements were supposed to be the last announcements of BlizzCon, not Diablo Immortal, because the Overwatch ones were technically the big ones. Those were the ones that people attending BlizzCon would have been super excited about, right? So the problem is that they ended on the Diablo Immortal announcement, and then immediately after the Diablo Immortal announcement had the Diablo Q&A thing, where people were still super pissed. And were absolute jerks to the development team, and completely unnecessarily so. But yeah, Blizzard messed up. Hindsight being 2020, they shouldn't have left things so vague about what the Diablo announcement was going to be, because they should have totally seen this coming, that people were going to be upset that it wasn't going to be Diablo 4. And they should absolutely not have ended the show on Diablo Immortal, because it was not the big announcement, and people weren't going to be super happy about it, because that's not, BlizzCon is their core audience, right? And when I say core audience, I mean core gamers, right? Not actually, it's not representative of the gamer audience at large, because the gamer audience at large is probably going to be perfectly happy with a mobile Diablo game. So ending it on that was kind of weird and bad. And I reckon that originally it probably would have been pretty good for investors. Apparently their stocks have dropped since then because people are pissed, though. So take that as you will.
That'll bounce back as soon as they start rolling in China bucks.
Oh, yeah. Because absolutely Diablo Immortal is not for the typical Diablo fan, and it's primarily for that Eastern market, right? It is not going to sell extremely well in the Western market, but it will sell very well in the Eastern one. Yeah. So
I mean, there's definitely an argument about often if a game's announced that you don't enjoy, so what? Just don't play it. It's a game that's not for you. No big loss. But there is a reality here that this wasn't just something what people were watching online. This was an event for enthusiasts that people had paid and paid for flights and accommodation and tickets to go and see. Yeah. And Blizzard should have read the room better in that, but
It was also not a year of big announcements. There was nothing really there. They didn't announce any new games. It was mostly here's upcoming stuff for current games, and even in terms of people were expecting bigger announcements for World of Warcraft, and it just didn't happen. It didn't pan out that way. It was a bunch of information that people already knew because those people that are part of Blizzard's core audience are already off we're reading Wowhead or MMO Champion that are getting all the information immediately, right? And then to have them just go on stage and tell us what we already knew wasn't that exciting. There was some little tidbits in there that people hadn't had confirmed, but was confirmed for them. And it's another thing that Jesse Cox basically said was like, back in the day, Blizzard wouldn't do a BlizzCon every year. They'd do a BlizzCon every year they had something big to announce.
Yeah.
And it would get people excited.
Well, it's like
whereas this
PSX,
year,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like Sony this year when we're not going to have a PSX because we don't have, stuff that we want to announce. We're just focusing on our already announced titles. But Blizzard, just have one every year. And I think that part of that is because they have got it tied into things like their esports. So they also have like the Overwatch World Championship and other sort of top esports events at BlizzCon as well. So you can't really cancel one without cancelling the other. Say, we are going to have BlizzCon, but it's just going to be esports, and people it's a different audience, I think.
Yeah, it's a much bigger thing now. Yeah. It's kind of like QuakeCon in a way. Like it's not a convention about Quake. It's a convention about all the associated sort of organised play for the different games under the id and now Bethesda kind of banners. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I throughout the entire announcement and subsequent controversy, I was reminded of a lot of different instances that kind of had correlations to this. Like the most recent one, of course, being what happened with the Command and Conquer Rivals reveal at E3 this year.
Yes, yeah,
and people really expressing their disdain for a beloved franchise sort of getting pushed into a mobile game that really didn't look as cooked as what they wanted. That reminded me a lot of that. It reminded me distantly a little bit of what happened when Nintendo announced Metroid Federation Force as well, instead of a new core Metroid title. And at that time, I sort of felt the pain too. I was just like, fuck, Nintendo, what are you doing? You know that this isn't what the fans want, I mean, at the end of the day, I haven't played that game. I've got no idea if it's good or not. I know some people that love it, but you can't sort of be surprised at the public reaction at the time, because I think that, again, Nintendo should have read the room better in a very similar way. But yeah, like it really reminded me of stuff like that. Blizzard don't fuck up very often like this, but this is probably one of the biggest ones in recent history for like quite a few years.
Yeah.
They're a company that has a reputation of holding off until something is completely done, and sometimes scuttling or cancelling projects altogether if they don't sort of meet the standard of what Blizzard sort of wants them to be. I mean, Project Titan being cancelled and later being resurrected to create Overwatch is a good example of that. They shelved a massive project that had been worked on for years and years. And that was huge for them. And I think a lot of people actually, got a lot of confidence and, gave Blizzard a lot of credit for having the guts to sort of, stick to their high standards and say, no, this isn't good enough for us. So yeah, I think, that sort of stuff just makes it really surprising when something like this is announced and it doesn't appear to sort of fit with their usual MO. It's a bit of a head scratcher. So, yeah.
And I think I mistakenly said it was co-developed by Tencent, but it's NetEase.
NetEase, yeah. So they have another game that is very similar, which some people have sort of speculated that there might be a bit of reskinning going on, but they've claimed that
they have a couple of games that are very similar.
Yeah.
Have you seen the Kung Fu Panda one?
No, I
think the their Kung Fu Panda game is actually the closest to Diablo Immortal, funnily enough.
Really? Okay, that's perplexing.
Yeah, I'll show you after the podcast.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah. What I will say though, like I said on Twitter before, I think controversy is a terrible word for it because like it suggests that Blizzard did anything wrong. I think Blizzard fucked up, but I don't think they've necessarily done something wrong to warrant it being called a controversy. I think that it's just gamer entitlement has gotten way out of hand on this particular issue, and it's only a controversy because of the fact that people are pissed off when they shouldn't be necessarily.
Now, here's the thing about that. Like, I think that... Okay, now you made a comment about this during the week on Twitter, which I sort of read, and I thought, okay, this is going to be interesting. So,
and again, I'm being much nicer.
Yeah, no, I know you are. And like, I must admit, like, when this all went down, my immediate knee-jerk reaction was pretty much the same. It was like, fuck this guy for standing up in the Q&A and, saying what he said. That's absolute, gamer toxicity at its worst, et cetera, et cetera. I have to admit, though, throughout the rest of the week, I've actually thought a lot more about this, and I can kind of empathize a bit more with that crowd than I perhaps did initially. And the reason why I do is because the more I think about it, the more I realize the nature of BlizzCon itself especially is that it is a fan convention where effectively what Blizzard does is they take the most extreme hardcore elements of their fandom and they weaponize it for a marketing purpose. Now, I think that, if you look at it in the light and fluffy way, yes, it's a celebration of everything Blizzard. It's all of the best elements of the company and the culture and the players and that sort of thing. But it also is the other stuff where they actually do take advantage of a lot of people who travel, spend a lot of friggin' money on tickets for this thing. I think the tickets for BlizzCon are upwards of around $200 US or something similar to that. And when people go to an event like this with a certain amount of expectations set by things the company has said or done during the year and fail to meet those expectations in such a spectacular fashion, I think that you can empathize with a large degree of the reaction. And, someone asked this question during the week, and I think this kind of, hits at home for me, where, when an announcement is made to a crowd like that, is it okay for them to cheer? Yes, of course it's okay for them to cheer. Is it okay for them to boo when they're not happy with what's being announced? Now, I thought about that and I realized that, it's a bit of a double standard if you say, no, it's not okay, because, it's one of those things.
Like, I totally agree. Like, on everything you just said, I totally agree. The only reason I think I was pissed is that all that ire was directed at the one person it should not have been directed at.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. No, I agree. The development team are taking a big amount on their shoulders this week and they've been beaten up, a lot. Yeah.
I was thinking about it this past week as well. And Blizzard itself is a gigantic super mega corporation that has a lot of money, and it doesn't need me going out there and white knighting for it.
Yeah.
But I will white knight the hell out of that poor developer up on that stage. Like, he should not have gotten the treatment he got. And that's the primary reason I think I'm pissed.
He did do one dumb thing, though. This is Wyatt Cheng that we're talking about.
Did you all have phones?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So
again, this another thing. If you haven't watched any of Jesse Cox's stuff, go watch it. Like, Jesse said the same thing. Like, it's really unfortunate he said that. But at the same time, if I was in that position, I also probably would say something really, really snarky, given the ire that was directed at me.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. You'd want to bite back.
Yeah,
for sure.
But then again, look at it from the other side too. Like, the guy that got up from the audience, and yes, he did ask a question, basically saying, is this game announcement a joke? As fucked as that is a thing to say, I kind of am forced to look at it from his perspective too, where there's a lot of other things he could have said, and he could have been an anonymous internet troll after the fact, posting shit online, without actually showing his face and having the guts to stand up and put his question to a microphone. He got up and he sort of asked whether they were for real, and that's his way of voicing concern over a franchise that he's invested in, whether it's actually being treated in a way that meets the expectations of the audience that he was amongst. Like, he could have phrased it better, sure. Like, I think that probably one of the best ways you could say it would be, hi guys, I just wanted to ask, what was the sort of thought that went into you announcing this game as it is when the audience is expecting this other thing? Maybe that would have been a better way to phrase it. And he chose his words poorly. But Wyatt Cheng then chose his words poorly too. And in both cases, emotion and passion is involved, and people fucked up and said stuff that's really bad. So
I want to mention something too. You said that like that guy, he's like invested emotionally in this franchise, that sort of thing. I've heard some sentiment online of basically people saying game developers don't owe you anything, like basically as if you shouldn't expect like a pattern of satisfaction to continue from a game development studio, that they have no like entitlement to do that. And I can understand where that kind of comes from, but at the same time, it's just ignoring like human nature. Like people do develop relationships with media and with franchises, and like I think it is a part of our consumer culture that we do have emotional attachments to franchises, and we do expect there to be satisfaction from the next installment of that franchise. And whether or not you can criticize that as consumerism gone mad, but it's just a part of our nature, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think this guy's sort of ended up being like a bit of a flagpole for some of the more negative elements to rally behind, and on the converse side of that, like some of the white knighters to sort of point at him and say this is an example of the things that are worst in gaming culture, and make it out to be a much bigger fire than it actually needs to be. So yeah.
There was another, I'm going to call it another person, because I've been doing a lot of reading about this, because it's as frustrating a situation as it is, it's also really fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
Because I can understand both sides. But Rami Ismail, if you follow him on Twitter, actually was breaking down how this is potentially a reflection of how gamer culture has been changed based upon expectations we've set around Kickstarters and that sort of thing, right? Where people are going and spending money on games they buy from us, and they feel invested in the studio, and they feel like they've put their money into it, right? So they expect a good result out. And so even though they've gone and paid for Diablo 3 and Diablo 2 or whatever, right? They become fans and they want to see that series excel and thrive. To see it go off in a direction that doesn't appeal to them makes them feel like that investment they've made hasn't paid off, right? Like they've put money into Blizzard to make Diablo 4, not to make Diablo Immortal, and so they feel like their investments kind of that they've been betrayed essentially. They've become much more passionate about it, and in a big way, as was already stated, Blizzard's whipped them up into this frenzy of being huge hyper fans.
Yeah. That's the bit that matters.
And it's going to, it's gone and blown back on them because this isn't a game for those huge hyper fans. So.
Yeah, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Like it's a double-edged sword when you use that fandom to sell your product. You have to accept the good and the bad that comes with it, I think. So it's a tricky one.
Yeah.
But I mean, who knows if the game will be good? I hold out hope. I do enjoy playing mobile games quite a bit. I play Hearthstone on mobile predominantly as opposed to PC. Although interestingly enough, when Hearthstone was first announced, unless my facts are off, I'm pretty sure they announced that at PAX, not at BlizzCon. And even when that was initially announced, it was announced for PC and the mobile content came later. So, this is one of the first times where they've made a major mobile game announcement at BlizzCon. And BlizzCon, of course, is packed with their core audience of long-time Diablo and other game PC players. Sure, there's a console market there, but, for the longest time, it's been pretty PC-centric. So I just wonder whether they, thought about their audience enough before making that move. I don't know. Yeah. It's a weird one. So
no matter what, it's going to blow over. So
yeah.
Oh yeah. Dust in the wind.
Yeah, exactly. It is the controversy of the week, but like you said, Matt, it's been a real interesting one to watch. So anyway, other BlizzCon stuff we should probably mention. There were a bunch of other things announced. Of course, there was the Overwatch stuff, which was a new cinematic called Reunion, which focused heavily on McCree and his relationship with the new character reveal, which was Ash of the Dreadlock Gang, so a lady gunslinger who has a few interesting abilities, and she's sort of set up to be a bit of a sniper with some close range stuff as well. What did you guys sort of take away from that? Did you enjoy the short and the character reveal?
I did enjoy the short.
Character?
I enjoyed the short, but I don't care for the character.
Okay, interesting. Yeah,
I've heard some friends play Overwatch have played Ash and they adore her. They have a lot of fun with her, but at the same time, I also see there's a lot of people that are like, it's just kind of more of the same. And I kind of get that as well. But I think the best part about her is the ultimate. Like, Bob is a really interesting ultimate. I just wish he was a playable character instead because he's awesome.
Yeah, something to do onto the field. Yeah, I love the short. I thought it was probably one of the best shorts they've actually done. It's expanded on the Overwatch lore a little bit more than some of the other ones did as well, with the little stinger at the end where they sort of introduce another new character. But you should go and watch it. Reunion. It's very, very cool.
Nice reference to Han Solo in there as well.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I didn't even pick that, but now that you mention it, that's cool. Yeah, there was some really good little references in there without sort of beating you over the head with it, like some of the other shorts have. Like, they referenced McCree's ultimate without actually him doing it. Like, the actual battle started at high noon sort of thing. So, yeah it was very, very cool. So Christian and I, of course, are happy that we got our new Hearthstone expansion announcement. So Rastakhan's Rumble is coming. It's a big sort of gladiator combat troll themed expansion, which has some pretty heavy tie-ins to the new World of Warcraft content in Battle for Azeroth, sort of the stuff that Matt and I have talked about previously, and the new Troll Isles. So that's kind of cool. So yeah, what'd you think of that?
Yeah. I think it looks cool. So yeah, this is the last expansion for this calendar year, and they've announced a new mechanic, which is the overkill. Did you read that, Luke? Yeah. So if your hero or a minion, like, it does damage exceeding the health total of the character being attacked. So if you do more damage than you need to, then you can attack again. So it's kind of like a modification of Wind Fury, which is just always being able to attack again. And yeah, I think there's some potential there. It also reminds me of like the trample in Magic the Gathering, with like additional damage sort of overflowing, kind of similar to that.
It's kind of like wasting resource as an activation trigger. in a way. Yeah, which is kind of cool. I like the gameplay impact of that. There's a lot of different things they could do with it. So, but yeah, we'll wait and see what happens with that. It's going to be a full-size expansion, 120 plus cards, and some more PvE content as well, which looks like a sort of gladiator combat style sort of short adventure run, which is pretty fun.
It's actually it's PvP, isn't it? I think I remember. Yeah, so like it's like the first new PvP mode. I think, or maybe I'm wrong.
I'm not sure. I'm going to have to go back and read it now.
Quickly fact check myself.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, while you do that,
it does say this does say solo mode.
Does say solo?
I think I am wrong.
Okay, it seemed to be a fairly character themed sort of encounter thing, but I mean, more of that's good. The last couple have been pretty interesting, so I'm happy for them to continue adding more content like that. So one of the bigger announcements of the show was Warcraft 3 is getting remade or reforged, as it's called. So Warcraft 3 Reforged. Looks like what they're trying to do is update all the assets and gameplay into a very smooth, polished format to be something of on the level of StarCraft 2 kind of gameplay, which I think is pretty ambitious. But if they can pull it off, I mean, people love those RTSs that are polished and more modern and actually are able to be played competitively, effectively. So that looks real good.
Yeah, my thoughts on that are hell yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Like for me, if they ended the opening ceremony on the Warcraft 3 Reforged announcement, I would have been so happy.
That's what they should have done.
I was excited when they announced it. Like when they announced it, like I've been talking with people recently about the Warcraft lore and everything, because I used to be a lore nut. And so much of it comes back to Warcraft 3, especially with Battle for Azeroth. Like, a lot of the conflict in Battle for Azeroth is all started in Warcraft 3. So to have that coming back out, I'm really excited. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, timing's good. Makes sense. And they have also mentioned that some of the stuff that's been expanded in World of Warcraft lore is actually going to be sort of retrofitted into Warcraft 3 as well, where it makes sense. So that's cool. We found out more details about the World of Warcraft Classic launch, which is going to be happening mid-year 2019 now, it seems. And anyone who has a current active subscription to World of Warcraft is actually going to get access to that. You won't have to purchase a separate thing, which is really good. I think that's a smart move. And probably last but not least, we had a new Heroes of the Storm character revealed, which was interesting in the fact that Orphea, who's the new one, is actually the first original character entering into that game. So it actually exists within the Heroes of the Storm setting, and she's the daughter of the Raven Lord, which is a character that exists for Heroes as opposed to any of the other Blizzard franchises. So, I guess eventually they're going to get to the point where they're running a little dry on some of the characters they can pull out, the big names from the other games, that they need to start making some new stuff. But that game's up to like 80 plus characters now. It's getting pretty big, and there's still a bunch they haven't done. Like they've still got half the Overwatch roster, for instance, that they can add in. So not to mention new Overwatch characters still getting revealed for Overwatch, which they could bring into Heroes of the Storm at a later date. So yeah, I don't think they'll run out anytime soon. But yeah, it was interesting to see that at least. But yeah, that's all the BlizzCon stuff. That's a whole bunch. Let's throw to Christian for some Nintendo stuff. What's going on?
Yes. So last week Nintendo had the final direct for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And they've announced the final lineup for the launch of the game, contrary to some apparent leaks that had happened in the week leading up to it. The new characters were Ken, who's an Echo Fighter for Ryu, and Incineroar. So there was like a fake leak that had like Geno from Super Mario RPG and Shadow the Hedgehog and a couple of others. That was proven false. And so, yeah, we have Ken and Incineroar, and then as the first DLC character, who will also be free if you buy the game in like the first month or so, is the Piranha Plant, which is probably the most left field one.
Weird. That's real weird.
Yeah, I never saw coming. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Waluigi doesn't get in, but Piranha Plant does.
I know.
That's right.
Doesn't that just rub salt into the wound?
It does. Nobody wanted Piranha Plant.
Yeah. Here's my prediction. I think that Waluigi will be the final DLC character revealed. That's my prediction. I think they're going to leave it right till the end. Yeah.
Or Bowsette.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Oh, Bowsette. Oh my god, that'd be hilarious.
Would they do it though? Do you really think that they would double down on that? I don't
think they would.
No. It'll take them another 10 years.
They should just have the crown as an item in Smash and just transform anyone who picks it up.
Man, that'd be awesome. And just be able to do that with every character.
With every character, yeah.
Oh god.
They also announced this new spirits system, which is like a kind of assist ability that you can customize your fighter with a few different like spirits, which are like supporting characters from other franchises. So there's like heaps, even more than the assist trophies. There's like hundreds of different spirit characters that you can kind of equip to you can equip one primary spirit and then like 3 support spirits. And basically what they seem to do is when triggered, they don't do like a powerful attack or appear as a fighter, but they like modify the match in some way. Like they change the environment or change the like abilities that you have or the abilities that your opponent can do. I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of potential for weirdness and customization with the spirits.
Is Waluigi a spirit? Do we know that?
Yes.
He is. Huh.
Yeah, he's a support spirit. So that's the one reason why I don't see him ever being a DLC character for this. Like he's already a support spirit. So, but that does mean you can go make Wario and have Waluigi as a support. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. The trailer was really cool too. I was just going to say.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Trailer was wicked. They've also changing the online mode, so that they used to just have the for fun or for glory, which was just like casual and ranked basically. But now they're having a mode where you can like input your desired like match options, like items off, final destination only, whatever. Like configure what you want, and then you'll be matched against other players who also want to play that same type of mode, so you can customize your online experience a lot more. And there'll be a more fleshed out ranked mode that'll have like an elite kind of like the top 500 in Overwatch sort of thing. There'll be, or like Legend in Hearthstone, there'll be like an elite mode for the top Smash Pros, which is cool.
Yeah. Okay.
And then there's the World of Light story mode, which looks really cool, and the trailer for that was awesome with like the cinematic of everyone getting blasted except for little old Kirby.
Yeah, he has his favorites.
So that's good. Yeah. That's going to be like a PvE mode where you play through like a story, unlock the characters, and fight like evil versions of the other heroes and other surprises, so it's pretty cool.
Now, you might be able to answer this if you've played previous Smash descriptions, because I haven't. The way that you unlock characters in the game, my understanding is that there's actually a few different ways to do that traditionally. Like, it's not just one system, am I right?
That's right, yeah. So there's usually like triggers. So it'll be something like after you've played 10 matches, you'll get like it always comes up as like an interception thing. So you'll finish a match and it'll be like, here comes a new challenger. And then you have to fight that hero to unlock it. And there'll be some of them will be set. It'll be like after your first match or your 10th or whatever, but others will be after kind of like an achievement system. So like if you've jumped 20 times with Mario, then after the match, you'll trigger Dr. Mario's match or something like that. But you've also been able to unlock them through like mini games or like side modes too. Each game has sort of handled it a bit differently in the alternate ways that you can unlock them. And so I think that it'll be the same in this game, that you'll probably be able to unlock them all through the Spirits mode, but also just through the single player matches. They'll still jump in and challenge you, I assume.
That's good. So people don't have to be forced to play that Spirits mode content to get everything. They can do it otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah, just play random matches.
Yeah. Sounds good. Cool.
And yeah, that was basically it for Nintendo for this week.
Interesting kind of last minute announcement. Well, not today, but like in the last couple of days. But the Australian Game Awards are now a thing. And they're going to be hosted by the team that basically bought us all the MCV Pacific Awards and such. They're currently taking nomination submissions. So if you want to submit anything to them, you can.
Can I submit a new category, Matt? Can I submit a new category?
Yeah, go ahead and talk to us about this new category, Luke.
Fucking hell. My God. Well, how many categories are there? Let's go with that first.
There's a lot of categories. So, okay, I'm going to rattle them off really quickly. Action Adventure Title of the Year, Audio Brand of the Year, Australian Developed Game of the Year presented by Bethesda, Breakout Creator of the Year, Controller and Accessories Brand of the Year, includes chairs, travel cases, etc. Cosplayer of the Year, Creator of the Year, Esports Personality of the Year, Esports Title of the Year, Family Kids Title of the Year, Game of the Year, Gaming Publication of the Year, Independent Game of the Year presented by Nintendo, Journalist of the Year, Mixer Creator of the Year, Mobile Handheld Title of the Year, Multiplayer Online Title of the Year, Organization of the Year, Player of the Year, Player of the year. So there's 2 different ones. That's interesting. I don't know how they're going to do Play of the Year. RPG of the Year, Shooter of the Year, Social Media God, Best Use of Social Media / Community Engagement. So Sports Racing or Fighting Title of the Year. That's a rather diverse category. Strategy Title of the Year, Team of the Year, The Game Changer has influenced positive change in games, Twitch Creator of the Year, and YouTube Creator of the Year. And there's one thing missing from all of that we are all particularly familiar with.
So, Matt, as I place my tongue in my cheek and sort of ask you, Mr. Matt Game Dad Diet, my esteemed podcast co-host, the granular aspect of this list seems to cover just about every possible base in the game's
Except
sphere.
for magazines.
Oh my god, what the fuck?
Nobody reads magazines anymore.
It's because they're listening to podcasts, god damn it.
That's right.
Oh my god, I don't believe they missed
podcasts.
that off the list. That's just a massive fail.
Some of these are bizarre as well, like Play of the Year and Player of the Year. Like,
So Play of the Year, that's like an esports thing, I guess? Like best
I
360
guess.
no-scope?
I reckon it'll be a posted video content thing where someone has done like a remarkable play, similar to those wrap-ups they do. It's either on Kotaku or GameSpot or one of those sites where they have like the play of the week kind of compilation.
Okay.
Yeah. It'll be like an outstanding achievement in a game where they've gotten like a really funny moment or something that they've managed to capture and share. Yeah.
Yeah, like the lack of podcasting on here is very strange. But I also find it really, really strange. This is the Australian Game Awards, and there's a single category for Australian developed game of the year. Like, that is really strange to me. Like, it's the Australian Game Awards, and there's a single category for one Australian game to win an award. Otherwise, like, you're up against everything else.
Yeah. It's
Or is it that that's like just the game of the year and everything else is assumed to be Australian, but they just have only mentioned that it's Australian in that one? I don't know.
I don't know how many Australian game developers are making esports titles.
Yeah.
It's tricky. Like, the big problem I often have with awards sort of setups like this is that the more categories you add, the more the spotlight in general has to get shared between all of the different winners, and you sort of make each of them individually a little less special. So, I mean, you look at what happens at the Game Awards. You know, when Jeff Keighley sort of put that together, he clearly had an idea where some of the big ones get proper billing, where they have like a full segment dedicated to the announcement, and then some of the others get announced like in the pre-show and just sort of between breaks and that kind of thing, and they're barely an afterthought apart from where they're seen in print afterwards. So I wonder if that's what they're going to do in this case, and have a few sort of headline ones and a whole bunch of the other ones that sort of are footnotes. But if they're planning on giving every single one of these categories like a decent billing, then that's going to take quite a while to get through it. I think it's going to maybe, I guess, spread the love a bit too thin. That's my fear. So yeah.
They've also very clearly gone for like a gaming industry focused awards show rather than just games. So it's all about everything that touches on games, which is fine.
Yeah, I actually kind of like that about it. That it's like a whole industry type thing, because like the Games Connect Asia Pacific has the Australian Game Developers Choice Awards. So that's basically like game developers judge and then choose from just Australian-made games which games should get awards that year. And there's a game of the year, and there's a team of the year, and a variety of different games that just receive awards as well. So this covering a lot of stuff is cool by me, but I also find it really strange that, like, I guess, Australia, it's basically setting it up, Australians have their own tastes, so having an American game win an award that might be Action Game of the Year that's different from, the Jeff Keighley hosted ones, Action Game of the Year, maybe that'll be interesting, but I think there's going to be a lot of overlap. It's also, might I say, incredibly expensive. $200 for accessing the awards. Like, that's rather surprisingly expensive for this.
When you say accessing, what do you mean? Attending as a member of the public, or submitting an entry?
Attending as a member of the public is $200.
Oh wow, okay, interesting.
Yeah, like, it's very, very expensive. I think that's because of where it's being held.
It's a full dinner sort of setup or something, maybe.
Yeah, where is it? The Big Top in Sydney's Luna Park. So it probably kind of includes Luna Park entry, I guess, in a way. I don't know if Luna Park has entry, but anyway. Like,
also, no VR category as well. I've noticed. I think I think they should do VR.
Okay, hang on. I need to clarify. The $200 ticket is for the Ultimate Fans ticket through EB Games.
There you go.
All right.
That's for food, drinks, and exclusive swag.
Okay, that makes sense.
Which still, that's better, but it depends on what's going to be in there. I haven't seen another price, but $200 is pretty expensive for that. So I'll be interested what the other prices are.
Yeah, VR is an interesting one. Like, I could see VR working as like a global category. I just don't know if there's enough VR titles made within Australia for it to sort of be noteworthy enough.
Oh, no.
Certainly compared to the number of Australian podcasts there are in the game sphere, that's for sure.
Honestly, like, it'd be interesting to see some other stuff in here that's not covered by other industries, like a serious game of the year.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's lots of those made in Australia. Like, a lot of the industry in Australia exists off of the serious games that they make, games for good and that sort of thing. So that's not represented in the Australian Game Developers Choice Awards, and it's not represented here either. So
yeah. I don't know. It's a bit of a head scratcher. I'll be very interested to see how this one turns out. But like, as much as I'm happy that it exists, I'm not filled with a huge amount of confidence in it being as what it is built as, essentially. So like you say, because it's so granular already, the fact that it misses certain things becomes more annoying. Yeah.
Whereas if it was less granular, it'd be way less annoying when they didn't have a podcasting specific award, for example. So
yeah, exactly. And I can say with absolute certainty that, all bias aside from actually being involved with our show as we are, I would still have the same opinion regardless. Like, I think it would be a massive sort of missed beat, because it is a pretty significant part of the media in the industry, and not just here, but internationally. So yeah. I mean, entire huge sites out there are, built off the back of podcasts that made them famous. Like Giant Bomb is a great example. So, so I just find it strange. But anyway, enough of my saltiness. We should probably move on. So, all right. Well, off our mega news sort of section today, we are going to jump into just a small discussion about a minor little game that launched, just in a short window at the end of this year. This little thing called Red Dead Redemption 2. So, now it's a bit of a shame that we couldn't have the wider team here tonight to discuss this, but I think that we are all fairly consistent with our views currently. So I think that we're going to end up with a lot of the same discussion points anyway, which has worked out in our favour. But
okay,
yeah,
I mean, an interesting assumption, Luke, because I haven't actually mentioned anything about how I feel about the game.
What do you know about me? I like to make broad sweeping assumptions and just not state what they are, and when later I am wrong, I claim that I'm right anyway. So
now I want to hear what the assumption is now.
No, I'll look. I will say what I think as we go and sort of see if we're all on the same page. But we'll see. All right. So anyway, long story short, we know this is probably the biggest, most anticipated game release of the year for many, many people. Rockstar Games have got a very, very high pedigree and a long-standing reputation. Not too dissimilar to Blizzard in that they tend to take a long, long period of time to develop large projects and don't tend to fire until they're ready. It's been, 5 years since their last big title came out, which was Grand Theft Auto 5 and GTA Online, which is, one of the, if not the most, I think, revenue-generating entertainment product in history, I think, was one of the things it was billed as. They've sold over 100 million copies of the game across multiple consoles, multiple generations. Absolutely huge. Red Dead Redemption 2 is on track to sort of follow in its footsteps in a big way. I think it was up around 10 million plus sales in the opening weekend of the game as well. So it's already, had a pretty good bump start. And this is before Red Dead Online has actually gone live as well. We still know hardly anything about that. So, slated for release later in November, apparently in beta form, but we've heard nothing. That's a discussion for later on. But so Red Dead, what kind of game would you say this is, Christian, if you had to describe it in a top-down aspect?
I mean, starting from the broadest scope, it's a third-person open world action and exploration game is the broadest way of speaking about it. It's set in the end of the 19th century, so 1899, I believe, is the setting. So sort of right on the cusp of the end of the Old West period. It's you play a cowboy, you ride around, you hunt animals, you shoot people, and it's pretty cool.
Lots of rootin' tootin', fun gunslinging
Lots
action.
of rootin' tootin'. Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, howdy.
Similar to when we discussed Spider-Man, it kind of it does a lot of typical open world things, but better than a run-of-the-mill. So you have like animal hunting and skinning that's featured in a bunch of other games like Far Cry and Assassin's Creed. But the way that Red Dead Redemption 2 handles it, I think, is like superior to anything that's come before, personally. And it has like sort of RPG elements to do with managing your character's stats. It's not too in-depth. You don't sort of level up and assign points. But I mean, there's some definite RPG elements in there too, and I think it handles them quite well. And yeah. I don't know. What do you guys think?
There's a lot of simulation elements.
Elements. Yeah. That's a better way of putting it.
Great way to describe it.
Also survival elements. You know, you have to eat, you have to sleep. If you don't sleep, you can always just drink a bunch of booze, apparently.
Yeah. You have to drink coffee or you can't shoot guys accurately between the eyes.
Yeah, basically. Like you're maintaining a camp, and that camp needs food, and so if they're not fed, I don't know what happens if you don't feed them, but it kind of encourages you to go out and do those other little things, like gathering food by going and hunting, and then bringing back food for them. You know, like here's a deer, and you go and toss that to them, and now the group has food, right? It basically it's a cowboy simulator is basically what the game is. It could have been called Cowboy Simulator 2018, and it probably would have been fine. But it's interesting. Like, it's a very, very broad open world game. It's very much in the same vein of like Grand Theft Auto, but it leans way more into that simulation stuff of gathering food and surviving and what it's like to live in the Wild West as it's turning not so wild.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I do like that part about it.
I think that's the biggest difference between this and GTA, actually. Like, GTA is very unashamedly gamified. Like, a lot of the elements in that game are very video gamey, whereas you pretty much hit the nail on the head with the simulation sort of comments. This is a game designed to make you feel like you are actually an outlaw cowboy in the Wild West, and it sometimes sacrifices some of the more snappy, fun elements of wacky gameplay to achieve that, such as, say, for example, skinning animals. That animation actually takes a little while. It's not as quick and snappy as you'd expect it to be in a faster moving game. It makes you sort of feel what you're doing a lot more. Traveling around everywhere takes time. Like, the fast travel stuff is not a core element of the game, especially early on. It really sort of forces you to go out and experience everything firsthand and take your time doing so. That's probably the biggest thing about this game. Like, it takes time to do a lot of stuff in this game.
Yeah.
So
there's also stuff that like little details, like your hair grows every day. So if you go and get a haircut, your hairstyle's not going to stay that way. It will grow out. If you overeat, your character will get fat. If you sprint a whole lot without eating much, your character will get thinner. Like, a lot of that actually comes back to like the sort of systems they had in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah,
but like because that exists in addition to all this other stuff about taking care of a group and keeping them fed and all these other systems around that. It definitely feels much more like a simulation, in addition to the game layer. Because it still does a lot of the gamey stuff that Grand Theft Auto does. So
yeah,
one thing I really like about it is the complexity of the dialogue and your interactions with the NPCs. So rather than just having like a standard like greet button that just is kind of one dimensional, there's heaps of options for how you can interact with anybody. So sure, you can just greet them, but there'll usually be 2 or 3 like dialogue recorded lines that will continue a short conversation with any random person you speak to, or you can you can be aggressive with them, or you can if they're being aggressive with you, you can like diffuse the situation or antagonize them. You can rob basically anyone in the game, and they may or may not resist your robbery attempt, and then you're forced to put your money where your mouth is and actually pull the trigger sometimes. And then there's the law and like wanted system, where rather than just kind of magically being wanted for committing a crime, like in like Skyrim or something like that, you can murder a chicken in the middle of a mountain and suddenly be wanted. In Red Dead 2, somebody has to actually witness your crime. So if you murder someone on the highway and there's no one else around, that's it, you get away with it. But if you, for example, murder somebody on the highway and then somebody rides up behind you and sees, then suddenly they're a witness. Or if you even just leave the body there and walk away, somebody will still see that body and be a witness to the crime. Now, if you have walked away from that scene, then they may not know that you've committed the crime. So the police might, if the witness alerts the law, then the law will investigate, but they won't be investigating they won't know it's your character, and they need to actually see your character to pin the crime on you. And it's quite a complex system of actually getting away with it and committing crimes. And you can, of course, intimidate or just straight up murder the witnesses before they even report the crimes.
It does create an interesting environment of escalation, though. Like, how many times have you guys gotten into a situation where you've killed someone for whatever reason? Like, could be part of a mission, it could be an accident, could be, you just got a bit trigger happy and wanted to see what happened. And then
or just you rode into town on your horse and knocked him down accidentally.
Exactly that. or got onto the wrong horse by mistake and someone's accused you of thievery.
Yes.
And then, Anyway, so then you've got a witness. So you go and you deal with the witness. And then you create more witnesses as you deal with the witness. And then you go and hunt them down. And then all of a sudden you're in a gunfight with half the town and the bounty just keeps ticking up and ticking up and ticking up. So, I've made...
I had... Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I've made a lot of use of the bandana disguise in more recent times to try and minimize the impact of that. Because you can actually put the bandana over your face to disguise yourself. And if you do it in time, I don't think it actually removes the bounty altogether, but it does reduce it considerably if you're anonymously going around and murder hoboing people. So,
but do you know the extra complexity with the bandana system, though? That if you don't... after a while, that effectiveness of that wears off, and you need to actually change your clothes or even the horse that you ride to start getting away with it.
Really? So I did not realize that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. If you so, like, for example, if you always go into town wearing the same clothes and riding the same horse, then if you then go and rob a store in that town wearing the same clothes, riding the same horse, but wearing the bandana, it's less likely to work. You actually are encouraged to change your gear completely so that like the anonymity is even stronger.
Wow, that's amazing. I did not realize that.
So this is where I'm going to mention one of my first problems with it, because it has all this really big, cool simulation-y systems, but they all kind of lean in the direction of you being an asshole, basically, right? But if you're trying to be a good person, so one of my most unpleasant experiences that I've had in Red Dead so far was when I was riding along and an escaped prisoner approached me. And he's like, hey, can you give me a hand here? I'm shackled, and if I don't get out of these shackles, then I'm going to die and they're going to capture me or whatever. And the expectation is there that you would shoot the shackles and release him to help this clearly poor person. Exactly, right? So I get out my lasso and I go and just, tie the guy up, toss him on the back of my horse, start riding into town. Now I'm wanted for kidnapping.
That didn't happen to me at all. I had the same guy. He hobbled up to me in his black and white striped like prisoner clothes, and I lassoed him, stuck him on my horse, rode him into town, dumped him in the sheriff's office. The sheriff greeted me, said, "Yeah, put him in the back," and then gave me some money, gave me some cash.
So maybe it's that the sheriff understands what's going on, but a general passerby in town won't, and they are the ones who think something else is going on.
That's got to be it, and I like that. I think that's good, and because that's like. That's contextually like realistic in a way.
Well, the problem is that a standard passerby comes and sees me with this guy on my horseback that is clearly in jail cards. He doesn't know what's going on, but then sends the sheriff out, and the sheriff shoots the shit out of me while I'm standing there, not shooting back, no gun drawn out or anything like that. I'm like, okay, look, I literally hold up, press the defuse button, and then he riddles me with bullets, and I die.
I think that's the problem. As soon
I-
as you've been accused of something, there's no way to defuse it after that point. Like when there's a witness to a perceived crime, it's not like one of the options when the law rides out to deal with you is to put your hands up in the air and, drop your guns.
Yeah.
There's a surrender option.
Is there? I've never seen that.
I've done it before.
I have had it pop up, but the problem is that most of the time when it's popped up, like the other occasion that I ended up getting shot to death by a sheriff was when I was passing through an area and I ended up saving this family from a whole bunch of assholes that were shooting at them. And the family ran off, and then I'm standing there over their bodies and everything, and I was heading in the direction of my horse, and apparently the sheriff was riding past because the sheriff sees me surrounded by dead bodies and immediately tells me, "Okay, don't run." And so I surrender, and then they start shooting me.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, what the hell? Like, I've got a gun drawn, I've just saved a family, but because the sheriff wasn't there to see me save the family, he's just presumed that I've just murdered all these people in cold blood. And I've had to just ride like crazy. I'm trying to do a good playthrough, and I keep on getting dicked over by the AI.
I like that you can be falsely accused of something. You can just walk up across a body and then somebody thinks you did it. That's fine. And I think with the surrender, it probably depends on the severity of the crime itself, because the examples I'm thinking of, the two times I've surrendered, it's been unarmed assault that I've been accused of. So maybe if it's that, then you get the option to surrender. But if it's like murder, or if you're on the like dead or alive status, then they probably just open fire straight away.
Maybe that's why I haven't noticed.
You definitely can surrender.
That's probably why I haven't noticed the control yet, because every single time I've been accused of something, it's probably been rightly so, and I have been absolutely fucking murdering people.
So I've also been doing a good playthrough, Matt, and I found that at first, before I understood a lot of the systems, I was struggling a bit, and I was finding my morality meter on the negative side. But now I have pushed it up, and I'm managing to keep it up and be a good cowboy.
I've been good thus far. Like I'm actually on the positive side of morality, so like I'm doing well. It's just that I keep on getting pinned for things that I didn't do wrong, and it's the most frustrating thing, which I can totally see being intentional, right? Like I can totally see that being like, you were in the wrong place at the wrong time, you've been accused, and that's it. Like the game's just decided you're now guilty. But it can also feel like I didn't do this thing wrong. So is that the game being a simulation and being like, yeah, life's unfair? Or is it the game just being dumb? Right?
Yeah.
Like it's hard to kind of draw that line. I would totally be willing to believe that it is actually intentional, but then the way it feels is not good, right?
It's probably a combination.
Yeah, it's probably a combination of things. But yeah, like at the same time, there's so many super interesting experiences in there. Just before we started recording, I was actually playing a bit of it, and I came across this guy just out camping. And I had previously come across somebody that was out camping, and I just approached them, and they were like, "Hey, yeah, take a seat. Let's have a chat." And I was like, "Cool, I'll come over and be totally friendly." I came across this guy, and he's like, "Hey, I didn't invite you," and I was like, "Okay, sorry, just diffusing the situation. Like, I'm sorry. I'll keep on moving on." And before I could move anywhere, he pulled his gun and started shooting at me. I'm like, "Whoa, what the hell, dude?" So I, shoot him back and immediately lose morality because it's like, "Hey, you just killed this guy that was just defending his camp." But at the same time, like, I like the fact that the same experience, so, two people, two camps, that I thought, because I had the first camp, I approached a totally friendly person, approach the second camp and have it be a completely different personality that doesn't act the same way, that makes the world feel more alive, because these are different people. They're going to act differently. Like, it's not just a canned response. I think that's really, really neat.
Yeah, it's really good, and it's a huge improvement over Red Dead 1, because one of the things I got super sick of in Red Dead 1 is you'd be riding down the road, and then there'd be a woman screaming for help, and then without fail, you would go to rescue her, but then it's a double cross, and like her bandits will just jump out and try and rob you, and it would happen every time. And in Red Dead 2, sure, there've been women who have or people who have been asking for help, but it's a different experience, and they have a reason that they need help. It's not just a generic person out there. Like they want to go back into town, or they want to find somebody who's missing, or like their horse has fallen on them, something like that. And it just feels way more diverse and interesting in those little encounters.
I had one encounter of that nature that I was a bit shut off about, though. Like I discovered a woman who had fallen underneath a horse. Like the horse had collapsed and, died on top of her or whatever, and she was trapped under it. And I, walked up after she had sort of been crying out for help and, managed to pull her out from under the horse. And I think her leg was broken or something. She couldn't actually walk home. So she sort of said, "Can you give me a ride back to my home?" Now, at that point, I had just finished killing off a legendary bear, and I had the legendary bear pelts on the back of my horse. And I literally had to make a decision there. I was like, okay, do I dump this legendary pelt, or do I help this woman out sort of getting back home? And I decided to help the woman out, and I sort of, stashed the pelt behind a tree somewhere, hoping I could come back for it later. But then, after dropping the woman home, I discovered the pelt had sort of despawned, which was a bit disappointing. So I was like, oh man, you're kind of punishing me for doing the right thing here. That doesn't feel great. But there are other ones as well.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, because that same thing happened to me. It wasn't a legendary bear, but I killed a legendary elk, and it wasn't a woman, somebody else wanted a lift. Oh no, it was a bounty. I had to drop a bounty back. And I dumped my legendary pelt and then dropped the bounty back in town, and the pelt was still there, and I managed to get it.
Maybe it depends on how far you're traveling. I don't know why yours despawned. Yeah, it could be a distance thing or a time thing.
So it's funny you say this, because I had the same experience, and I went and looked it up online before I made any decisions. And apparently, so if you have left that pelt and never gone back to collect it, if you go to the Skinner dude that you would normally sell it to, the trapper, so he will actually have the pelt there, but you won't have gotten the benefit of selling the pelt to him. It still counts for you that you've gotten that pelt, but you don't get the benefit of being able to make the whole bunch of money off of it. So it can be used for
crafting, but not for the income. Okay.
Yeah. But you can use it for crafting, but not for income, basically.
That makes sense.
And that made me make the decision to say, well, no, screw you, lady, and I just kept on writing.
Fair enough. There was another nice young man who had been bitten by a snake, and I managed to sort of help him by sucking the venom out. So, afterwards I met up with him in town, sort of out of nowhere. Like he sort of said, "Hey, you're the dude that sucked me off and saved my life." And I'm like, okay, cool.
Did he offer you anything in town?
He did, yeah. He said, come into this gun store and get something on my tab, sort of thing. So that was really cool. Yeah. So little things like that where you don't expect what the reward's going to be and it's not immediately obvious. I think that's really cool. I like that.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention just one more of those little stories, because it was the story that didn't sell me on the game, but it's what made the game's like depth and click for me, it's made the immersion click for me, I'll put it that way, where I just finished like hunting something or doing who knows what out in the middle of the wilderness, and there was a guy by like a stream panning for gold.
Yes, I've seen this one.
And I just walked up. Yeah, I've just walked up to him and he said like, there's nothing out here. This place is useless. And I just like went back to the road, and then I was like reading my journal, just like flipping through the pages, not paying him any attention. And then I heard him in the distance going like, "Yeehaw, I'd done it. I found myself some gold." And I was just like, "You made a big mistake, buddy." And then closed my journal, got off my horse and shot him in the head. And then I looted his body, and sure enough, he had a gold nugget on him. And it was just that like the fact that his little story like progressed just in the background, where I could have just ridden away and never seen him again. But because I like stood there, it was like he was a real person actually panning for gold and did find it. And I just thought that was really cool, that it wasn't just like a one note, like already settled little NPC story.
You may be interested to know that if you actually had have stayed standing next to him, he actually does the same thing, but the dialogue prompt pops up to rob him if you want. So
I didn't wait. I was just like, nah, because I didn't want him to like leave or something. So I just capped him. That was before I decided to be good.
Yeah. Speaking of attention to detail, there was one other that I encountered, which was a Mexican sort of sharpshooter who had a bunch of bottles sort of set up on like a rocky outcrop, and he invites you to sort of place a wager down on whether you can sort of shoot out more bottles than him within the time sort of given. And so you do it, and you place a wager. I think it's like a couple of dollars or something, and you go one round, and you're able to shoot the bottles, fairly quickly, and sort of do it quicker than him. And he sort of says, "Oh, how about another one, double or nothing?" And the second round, he actually waits until like a flock of birds go across the sky, and you actually have to shoot down clay pigeon style, like actual living birds. Now, it was pretty clear the way they'd written this was as a bit of a grift, because the guy was able to shoot the birds a lot more effectively than the stationary bottles on the wall, like he'd been holding out and waiting for the real sort of challenge to begin. But the cool thing is that after you fail at the second challenge, because I'd used all my Deadeye by that point, he basically sort of says, "Oh, you're not as good as you think you are, thanks for the money, yada, yada, yada." And of course, I did what any self-respecting cowboy who'd just been grifted would do. I shot the motherfucker in the head and robbed him. And the money he had on him was exactly the quantity that he would have needed to actually make that scam work. So the attention to detail with that was pretty spot on. It was really good.
It sounds clear from just this conversation and some of the stuff I've read online that, I mean, these little scenarios, there aren't a staggering number of them. Like, we've all experienced most of these. Like, I've seen that guy doing that grift twice, but it's been a different person and in a different place. And I think that's the key thing, is that even though these little scenarios, you will see the same ones over again, they have a different twist on them, like a different character in a different place and maybe a different result.
Which is kind of good, because they're limited time. So I'd like to believe they will pop up again if you miss them. That's good.
They are also branching, though. Because I'm going to do one last little story, because it's nice and quick. But I was walking past a bar, and one of the members of the gang was calling for help. And I could hear like there was some sort of argument between him and somebody else, but I couldn't work out where he was. And so I kind of just rode past and looking around for him. And then I finally find him, and he's being shoved out of the bar, and he's in the dirt and everything. He's grumpy with me because of the fact that I just completely ignored him and didn't help. So we had this back and forth with him about the fact that, I thought you had it by yourself. It's fine. But I'm like, well, shit, I basically failed this event because I didn't intervene. But I decided to hop off my horse and go inside and confront the dude that was responsible. And there was actually dialogue for confronting him after he just went and did that shit to my gang member. And it was really cool. Like, it was really straightforward. Like, I didn't actually get into a fight with him or anything like that, but I went inside. I basically said, "Hey, look, that wasn't cool," and and moved on with my day. But the fact that event, I could have intervened and seen one outcome, or had that outcome I had, where I just I couldn't find the guy, so I confronted him afterwards, and it still played out. That's so important to making the world feel alive.
Yeah. Every time I've contextually doubted that the game would know what I'm intending to do, it's always proven me wrong. And it's always like the dialogue or the way characters react to me, it's always very immersive, and the game understands what I'm intending to do.
Yeah. The character development with Arthur Morgan, like your main character, is interesting as well. Like, I mean, the fact that this is a sequel, is odd to begin with, because it's actually a prequel to the storyline in Red Dead Redemption. John Marsden, who's the main character in that, is kind of in this game, but in a much, much younger setting. He's actually, one of the gang members as opposed to the central character. You're Arthur instead. Arthur Morgan, in contrast to John Marsden in Red Dead 1, who, he's very much on a redemption arc sort of story and trying to atone for the sins of the past. Arthur is super different. Like, he's a guy who, I think he knows what he is, and he knows that he's a bad guy. And he's kind of unrepentant to a certain level about it, whilst also being, fatalistic about the way that he knows it's going to end eventually. Like, he knows that it's going to be the death of him kind of thing. And I think that's a really interesting sort of juxtaposition of the character from the first game. But also, I don't know if it resonates with me, because a lot of it seems to be, without having any particular story spoilers, there seems to be a lot of times where he's trying to sort of, do the right thing, or you can try and do the right thing. But then the situations that you're put in and the deliberate, obvious actions that he has to take put you right back into villain territory again. And it feels like, the game's kind of, giving with one hand and then just pulling you back with the other all the time. And it's a little frustrating in that regard. I don't know. What did you guys think about that?
That's a problem that like GTA has had in the past too. It's what the fancy ludonarrative dissonance people call it, where your actions in the game kind of belie your character's sort of story. Or like clash with them. And it's definitely true in Red Dead. Like there's situations where you're forced to like massacre half a town basically. And it's just part of the main story and you don't really have any say in it. And that's not the kind of character I'd like to be. And it's that push and pull between giving you the freedom to go evil Arthur or good Arthur, but then those main story beats are going to be the same no matter what.
Yeah. Like it's absolutely one of my biggest frustrations with the game is that Arthur is just kind of resigned to doing all this. Like, I have not yet figured out what Arthur's motivation is. Like, he just kind of keeps on doing these things, and I don't know why. I'm trying to be good, but then in every single cutscene, Arthur is kind of a jerk, and it's like he's just resigned to being this person. While the playthrough that I'm doing, I'm making a lot of effort to be a good person. And it's this really, really weird dissonance. I absolutely have to say that Red Dead Redemption 2 is doing a way worse job on its characters than Red Dead Redemption 1 did. Because, like, there was a bit of that ludonarrative dissonance in there, but the character was trying to get out of this situation. And a lot of the time, a lot of the shit he was doing, he had to do it. It was basically the federal government's basically saying, look, you have to do these things, otherwise you're going to kill your family. And it's like, well, shit, I don't want that to happen. Whereas with Arthur, it's like, is his motivation just to make money? Is his motivation to get out? I don't think he wants to get out. I'm pretty sure he's just resigned to being in this life. Or he just is embracing this life. But it's never, like, there's no showing in there and there's no telling. It's just Arthur is just this guy that just keeps on floating from one mission to the next. That just feels really bad. Yeah.
I'm hoping that the story comes good in the end. Like, because there's a lot of story that I've not yet experienced. Yeah.
I'm only up to just the very start of chapter 3 for context. I don't know how far you guys are in.
Yeah, I'm about the same as well. But I feel like there's been a lot of story to this point. But, even to this level, I feel like it hasn't achieved a lot in the way of direction of that narrative. Like, it seems to be floundering a bit. Yeah.
It's definitely impressed me far more in its world than its story. Like,
for sure.
Arthur Morgan is way less compelling than John Marston was. In fact, I find John Marston in Red Dead 2 more compelling than Arthur. I want to spend more time with John and see what his early life was like more than I do care about what's happening to Arthur.
There's the one character that you capture in the opening chapter that you end up strapping up onto a tree and leaving there. That actually turns out to be a really interesting character.
Agreed.
That I would want to kind of learn more about. But Arthur, in comparison, is just like it feels like they've kind of got this whole Master Chief-esque thing going on with him, where it's like he's basically a blank slate and just kind of acts in this super neutral fashion so that you can justify one way or another his actions kind of being what you want them to be. But there's no story motivation. Like it's really, really bizarre to me.
Hopefully the story will surprise us later.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to double back on that and see how it plays out. But I mean, suffice to say, all the other obvious elements, the visuals are absolutely astounding, some of the best to
amazing.
date.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah. Just incredible.
It's a generation-defining game in that respect, I think. Yeah. Sound design's absolutely
just switching
incredible.
To cinematic mode. Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. You can hit the big touchpad on the PlayStation if you're playing on that, and it just basically puts you in like a wide frame mode where it's like you're just watching a movie. It's great. It's really amazing.
I've seen some great videos of people going into cinematic mode and the camera panning out at just the most inopportune time that leads to them riding off a cliff with their horse super dramatically.
Well, as long as you're on a road, it does the like automatic riding if you're on a road doing some cinematic. But
one thing that I would complain a little bit about, and I don't know how they could have done this a lot better because it's kind of complex and it has to be, is the control scheme really does trip on its own toes sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm finding a lot, and this is something that's improving with more time sort of in-game, is that, sometimes the consequences of accidentally hitting the wrong button, because some of the buttons are in confusing spots, is actually quite massive. Like if you accidentally punch someone as a result of pressing the wrong button, or if you accidentally sort of, raise a gun and shoot somebody by accidentally hitting the wrong trigger, that could be a, path to death move very rapidly.
Well, that's the big one, is the L2, because if you're not holding a weapon, L2 is the trigger that you press to engage in dialogue with somebody. If you are holding a weapon, L2 will aim that weapon at the person and then create a potentially violent situation. So the thing you have to drill into yourself, and I had to drill into myself, was to put away my gun anytime I want to talk to somebody. Like you just, if you've got your gun out, then you're in violent territory.
It's literally like your controller needs a safety. Sort of thing,
that's right.
It's tricky.
There's also the fact that you can select your fists in the weapon wheel, but if you pull the trigger, it pulls your gun out.
Mm.
And if you pull the R2 trigger,
and that's really weird because why have the fists in the menu to be an equipable item if it's just going to pull it out when I press R2? Like the first 2 hours of the game, I was freaking out whenever I was in a fight close up with somebody else because I wanted to punch them, but I would keep on pulling my weapon out and I couldn't figure out. Okay,
circle is punch.
Yes, circle is punch, but it had been so very briefly covered that by that point I'm like, wait, what am I supposed to do here? And it took a really long time to actually work that out again and kind of wrap my head around the controls. So the fact that it took me 2 or 3 hours to wrap my head around how I should be playing the game properly is not particularly good. I can kind of see now why the tutorial is replayable.
Yeah.
Yeah, this game does take a lot of training. You need to learn it.
And the training content and the tutorial content is very long-winded. The first 5 hours of the game is essentially tutorial, and it's sort of blended in with the missions in a way that you can't really avoid it, but it also takes you way too long to sort of get to the stuff that you need to know, I feel.
Yeah.
And the menus as well don't help. Like the sort of menu system and the way that all of the different sort of journals and logs of your progress and your weapons and that sort of stuff, it's very, very layered in a way that is, confusing to sort of navigate through at the best of times. I do like that so much attention is given to your horse, though. Like the fact that when you go to the character sort of screen to look at your own stats, you've got a big image of your horse there at the same time and heaps of information about that. And your horse essentially is one of the main characters of this game. There's a lot of attention paid to your relationship with your horse, which is cool. But yeah.
It broke my heart when my horse died.
Oh, really?
Because I had a bounty, right, and I wanted to pay it off, so I sped into town, rode my horse up to one of the post offices near a railway track. I jumped off my horse, ran inside. I didn't realize that I jumped off my horse on the railroad track. A train pulls up.
Oh, dude.
and annihilates my horse. And I just hear this. I'm in the middle of paying my bounty, and I hear this terrified cry coming from my horse.
No.
And then I went to I didn't click straight away. Then I went to whistle, and it said your horse has died. And I went, oh no. I did reload that. I know that you can just use horse reviver, I think, but I just in a panic reloaded.
Yeah, when the instructions for the game said train your horse, that's not what they meant, Christian. I think we've kind of all sort of shared, our broad overall thoughts about the game. If you had to summarize sort of where you're sitting with it at the moment, what would you say? So, Christian, how about you first?
Before I just summarize, I've got one more thing I want to discuss, which is a criticism that maybe other people don't share. It's maybe particular to how I play the game, okay. But I really wish that the day-night cycle was about 3 times slower. I find that the days and the nights go by way too quickly. So I love the hunting in this game, and I will set out from the main camp with my weapons loaded onto my horse. I'll ride way out into the country, and then set up my camp. cook some meat, craft some arrows for my hunting trip the next day. Then the next day I'll get up and I'll put my scent cover on and I'll go out ranging and looking for game. But I find that the day goes by quicker than I want it to, and I don't have long enough to actually track my game and do my hunting and move around in the wilderness before night starts to fall. And I don't know. I just feel like I wish I could slow it down a bit more.
Yeah. I have had a bath that took all night, and I can kind of sympathize with you in the same respect. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the reason they have it so fast is because they want to justify the scale of the world. Because there's a quest you do really early on where one of the characters say that this ride is going to take us a few days to get out to this place. And then you see the cutscene and everything like that, and you're like, okay, no, how is this a couple of days? And then when you do the ride back, a few days in game time do actually pass. It's almost like the day-night cycle is meant to be representative of the scale of the world, and it just doesn't feel very good. I totally agree.
It doesn't click. And then another thing similar to that is I can't get away from civilization enough. Like, I feel like I'm always too close to a path. I'm always too close to a random camp. Like, there aren't vast enough expanses for like to sort of satisfy my cowboy desires.
Wanderlust. Yeah.
My wanderlust, like I want to be way out there in the wilderness, but I just can't reach that. I'm always tracking game, and then I find myself walking across a road, something like that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
But my summary though, I do actually love this game. I'm completely absorbed in it. I love the immersion of the world. I find the environments and the sound design and the graphics just so amazing, and I love the complexity to the hunting and the robberies and all the little details that you can do, robbing homesteads and stealing carriages, robbing trains, like just so much you can do, and it all, I don't know, it just feels great. I actually do love the game, despite a few things I wish to improve.
Yeah.
Whew. Okay. Well, this is going to be awkward. All right. So, in summary, if I were to say how I feel about Red Dead Redemption 2 in a word, is overhyped. And if I were to say it in 3 words, I'd say buy Spider-Man instead.
No, I like this better than Spider-Man.
I enjoyed Spider-Man substantially more than I have enjoyed this thus far. So I was going to say earlier, like that opening tutorial, it took me 3 days to complete that opening tutorial because I was getting so bored. But the moment that I could jump into the game and I just could take off away from the game camp and start hunting and gathering stuff and just riding around the world at my leisure, the game felt so much better. Now, when I say overhyped, it doesn't necessarily mean I think the game is bad. I do really enjoy the game, but it really didn't deserve the hype it got. Like, it's a really great simulation, but in terms of enjoyment, like, I'm actually more looking forward to going back and playing more Spider-Man than I am playing more Red Dead. I will play the hell out of it. I will definitely finish it, but yeah, I think it was overhyped for sure.
Yeah, I guess I'll probably fall somewhere between the two of you. So I think that the game is an absolute technological marvel. And in terms of the hype level being representative of what they've achieved in the design, I think that it is probably largely justified because it is kind of a generation-defining game in a lot of the things that they've managed to achieve. But I think, unfortunately, a lot of that stuff just doesn't translate to me personally as enough of that fun factor. So I am really enjoying my time with the game. I think it's a fantastic game. I do love a lot of it, but I do find myself getting frequently distracted by other things at the moment because it is a massive time commitment to sort of sink into this thing to really sort of get anywhere. And it takes a lot of time to do it. You know, some of the most mundane actions, it takes a lot of time to travel to different locations. Some of the missions are quite lengthy as well. And I feel that it's a game that you can't sort of pick up and put down very quickly. You kind of need to dedicate a good hour or two every time you sort of sit with it to feel like you're achieving enough content. And I do love it, but I think that it's not that comfort food like some of the other games that I've played this year have been, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can totally understand that.
Yeah.
I think it's like I just love slower bursts of games. So this is like immersion porn for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of immersion, I absolutely I totally agree. The technology achievement here is incredible. it just, again, I totally agree with Luke. It doesn't really translate to that much fun for me. If I have a free weekend, I will sit down and I'll play the hell out of it and I'll really enjoy it. But I can't really pick it up and play it in an hour, which is mostly what my play sessions end up being. So
yeah, and that's probably a good word of warning to people who are looking at buying this thing, because I think it definitely is going to be for a particular taste. In line with your play styles, and people who are willing to sink the time and have that huge immersive experience are going to get a lot out of it. But people whose sort of lifestyle and time frame to play video games don't accommodate that very well will probably struggle with it. So it's good to know that going in. But that being said, I'm actually finding myself a lot more hyped for Red Dead Online than I am perhaps for the single player experience. So when I can actually go out and create my own narrative a bit more, as opposed to following the narrative of Arthur Morgan, I think I might actually be a bit more engaged with that. So I'm here's hoping for what they actually managed to put out for that game mode. It could be a lot of fun. And playing it with friends, I think, will add a whole other degree to that too. So, yeah. But, super interesting. Again, another really, really fascinating thing that has happened this year that we can kind of talk about in a way that maybe we didn't expect. So, yeah. Yeah. It's been, 2018, what a weird year. It's been bizarre. All right, anyway, well, despite the focus tonight on Red Dead 2, I suspect this is going to be something we'll end up touching on again in the weeks to come, because there's quite a bit more content to explore and more stories to be told and more, escapades in banditry and how, those tales have all gone wrong for many of us will play out. So, yeah.
For sure.
But
the game is very good at giving you stories to tell. I'll say that much. We spent most of our time talking about stories.
That's true. So. It was the natural, easy thing to do. For sure. Yeah. All right. Well, that's pretty much it for this episode. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Again, you can catch us at all of the usual places. So check us out first and foremost at partyloaded.com. And there you'll find a window to all of our other content and our socials, which include us on Twitter at Partyloaded Show. On Facebook, just search for Partyloaded. You find us on Twitch, twitch.tv/partyloaded. And all of our YouTube content is at youtube.com/channelendgame as well, of course. But if you have any feedback from the stuff that we've talked about, particularly any cool cowboy stories or, tales of, how things have not gone exactly to plan in the Wild West, you could also hit us up at mail@partyloaded.com. We'd love to hear them. It would be good. That should be one of the Australian Game Award categories this year. Best Red Dead, story. I reckon they'd probably get a fair few entries.
Yeah, they would.
Oh, God. But, all right. Well, in just a few words, plans for the next week, besides Red Dead, anything interesting? Christian, you looking at digging into anything besides cowboying, or are you going to be occupying all your time with this? What do you think?
Lots of cowboying, but I also have to build a new PC for my brother, so that's going to be a project for the week. Interesting. All right. Matt, what you got on?
I will definitely be doing more cowboying. I'm probably going to also pick up and play some more of Spider-Man and get the Heist. But Ark Extinction also came out, which I suppose is a bit of game news. But anyway, I will probably dip my toes into that and play a little bit of it and see what it's like, because it looks interesting. So
nice. Well, I found out today that in 2 days' time, in fact, the early access for people who have pre-ordered Hitman 2 is going up. So that's going to be the next thing on the list for me.
I'm going to have to pre-order it.
Yeah, that's it. So go out and do some of that. And Fallout is out next week, but I think that'll probably be just after we record our next episode. So anyway, all right. Yeah. But anyway, again, we've run long, we've run late, we've talked about a lot of good stuff. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Really appreciated your company. We'll see you again next week. But for tonight, good night.
Bye-bye.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.